Hello, my name is Dr. Olivia Moses, and thank you for joining us here for Wellness Live. We have a great topic for you today. And so the first question I have for you is, are you on the internet? And you might be asking, well, of course I am. Really, everybody we know is on the internet, whether you're doing searches and trying to learn things to buying things. So today we have a very important topic to you about how to protect yourself. So let's get to it. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Rick Duvall. Rick Duvall has been here at the organization for over 2 decades. He's been here for 23 years. He has 2 children. One of them is graduating next week, so now's the time for celebration. But again, I'm here to introduce you to Rick Duvall. Rick Duvall is the Chief Information Security Architect here at Loma Linda University Medical Center, and he will be talking to us about protecting yourself on the internet.
Thank you for that nice introduction, Olivia. Like you said, the topic here is how to protect yourself on the internet. And we have 10 things to consider. There's hundreds of things we could cover, but we've got the 10 things that we're going to cover here. So let's jump right in. The first thing you have to understand is not everyone is a good guy. I know human nature is to say, I want to trust everybody, but that can cause some problems on the internet. One thing to remember here is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If something feels a little off, why don't you seek additional validation? If anyone resists validation, they're suspect. So if you ask, can you please verify this? And they say, why do you want me to verify? Probably not something you want to go through. It's a concept we call, which is seeking out-of-band validation. Here's an example from the FBI when someone claims to be an agent. What you actually do there is you ask to see their credentials. They should have a badge, should have their credentials on it. You get their name and their ID. You go to Google and you get the local field office number. You don't let them give you the phone number to call. You call that field office and you tell them, I have Agent Smith here, his ID is 7321, is he real? And if they'll verify it for you, then you know it's a real agent and you can go forward with that. You give them the credential and name, they verify it for you. So our second one here. What is spam? It's not just a canned meat. It's the general term for annoying emails, but they're not malicious, they're annoying. Ads, you get ads all the time. Penny stock solicitations, this is kind of borderline. They're annoying, but if you follow up on them, they could turn out to be fraudulent and other things. In reality, 80 to 95% of all email is actually spam. Don't reply or unsubscribe. This just validates your email address. Some of these schemes are just out to verify, is this a real email address? Well, if they send it to you and you unsubscribe, you've now confirmed there's a real person here. Your address is now much more valuable. You can unsubscribe, though, if you intentionally subscribed. So if you subscribe to ESPN's sports feed and you decide you don't want it, it's okay to unsubscribe because you know that's real. People make money excuse me, by validating your email address. Spammers try all kinds of methods to get past filtering. They'll make it as, they'll do text as a picture that has the words in the text, so text filters can't read what they're showing you. It's a picture of text, not text itself. Using a known sender solution is really the best solution. That includes an accept new sender option is probably the best. What this means is all of your email goes to an intermediary, and unless you've said, I trust this person and want their email, it doesn't get through to you. So that's a way to keep spam from floating through on you. A third one here, phishing. What is phishing? And yes, that is the correct spelling. Phishing is any email that tries to attempt to get you to log into a fake site. They collect your user ID and password. So then they log into the real site as you. So what this is they may take all the images for Bank of America, they build a lookalike Bank of America site, you log into that site, give them your ID and password, and then they take that and they feed it into Bank of America so you can log in. And you don't realize that's going on until later on they start to access your account as yourself and empty your account. They can do this for web-based email sites as well. They read your mail or they use your account to send spam. So if they get you to trick you to logging into a website for email, then they'll start sending email as you, and then other people will think it's you. Phishing is generally not specifically targeted at you. One common approach is to fish everyone in your contacts. What that means is they get your account, they log into the website, the webmail, they get your contacts list, and now they send that email to everybody in your contacts list. So that's how these things grow and tree out. Then they'll also try your credentials on other common sites, because most people, quite honestly, are lazy, and they'll use the same ID and password on multiple sites. So if they get your credentials at one place, they log into another site, and now they're in yours as you as well. Most people use eBay, most people use PayPal, common sites, common IDs, they get one, they get them all. Number 4 here. Okay, what is spear phishing? Okay. Spear phishing is targeted at an organization or a group of users. Specific group. Just like if you're fishing in general, you're just throwing your line in the water and whatever you catch, you catch. If you're spear phishing, you're actually taking a specific fish and you're trying to catch and spear that one fish. The email is crafted with details specific to the organization or group. So if you wanted to say fish Loma Linda University, if you included something about Adventist charities or missions or something like that, that would tend to add realism to the email and maybe entice people to click on it and look at it. Spear phishing can be much more destructive since they have knowledge of the victim. They know we're targeting Loma Linda University, so they have some information about you. You probably live in the area you're around. So there's things that can be derived from that. So it can be much more specific. Okay, so another one, whaling. Figuring, what are all these phishing terms? Well, it makes sense. Whaling is specifically spear phishing that's aimed at executives or high-ranking members of the organization. If we can go after the CEO and get their credentials, they probably have access to a lot of things. So as we go up the thing, phishing is just general, spear phishing is targeted, and whaling is going for the top fruit. It's crafted, a lot of times it's crafted to come from appear to be a fellow CEO or fellow CIO, so add credibility. Let's see, number 5 here. Don't open attachments you're not expecting. Do I really need to say any more? Back to our example, use out-of-band verification. Joe, did you email them back or call them, Joe, did you really mean to send me this picture of Anna Kournikova? Okay, one of the worst initial virus outbreaks was embedded in a picture of Anna Kournikova. If you don't know, she's a blonde Russian tennis player. Very beautiful, very popular. So that, putting her name to it, lended credibility, but why is Joe sending me her picture? As an example. The other thing to think is the from address is easily forged in email. It's kind of like the same way you write the return address on an envelope. There's no validation that that's really where it came from. The from address in an email can be easily forged, so you can't necessarily rely on it. Well, it came from Joe, and I know Joe. Well, it may not really be him.
Ask some questions now, and so this is the time where you get to ask questions of Rick on maybe the first 5 things he just talked about. And one of the questions that we have here that has come up so far is talking about spam. So with spam, if we can't unsubscribe, how can we stop it?
There are products that will do filtering, that they look for common occurrences. They look for things that show if it says offer and free, or if it's only an image and there's no text to it. There are spam filtering programs that will look at the content and will work that way. In fact, we have some fairly effective, the spam filtering here, like I say, 90% of our email on an average day is spam that's caught by our filters and not even sent to the users.
Okay, so there is some hope for the personal user.
There is There is, one of the best things is that known sender concept. Some email clients have it built in. So there are services that can provide that, where any email gets filtered, and if it's not somebody I said I want mail from, you get an email that says, do you want mail from Joe? And if you say yes, now it lets mail from Joe come through. So it's another way to do that.
Well, we have a question coming in here, and this is actually a great question, so thank you. So keep them coming. Is it okay to use password managers like LastPass? And so could you describe what a password manager is if people don't know?
A password manager is basically a program where you put down your IDs and passwords, and then you use a very strong password to control access to that password manager. Most commercial there are commercial password managers. Those are generally safe. So you put a really hard password on the password manager, but once you open it, you have your IDs and passwords to the various sites. So those are generally safe to use.
Okay. And are there, can those be hacked? I guess that's always a possibility.
It's always a possibility. They are generally, if you use long passwords, and in this case a long password is 15 characters or more,
That's
and
very
you
long.
use mixed case, that can make it harder to crack, where they try what's known as a dictionary attack. I'm just going to try every letter combination until I find something. Those are very difficult to crack. So if you use long passwords, complex passwords. Now, one example of a simple way to make a complex password is to pick a phrase you know and that you remember, like the Yoda, there is no try, only do. So you would say TNT. I can't do the letters, but basically the first letters. So it becomes, so you remember the phrase and you just go, there is no try, only do. Those six characters are unrelated in any way, but you know the phrase they came from. That's an example of how you would create a good password. Now, you need more than 6 characters, but that still is a better password.
That's great. So another question that we have here coming through is, how can I stay up with security trends so that I don't end up compromising my system just out of ignorance?
Well, the first thing is only use reputable software. There's a lot of free software that comes with unintended writers, unintended things. The example that's clear is sometimes if you download Adobe Reader, it may say, unless you tell us not to, we're going to install the Google toolbar. Okay, that's when they're up front telling you about that, but there's a lot of free software that does exactly what it says and brings other stuff along that you don't know about. So the biggest thing is keep your system patched. If you're a Windows user, generally you should turn on auto updates on your home machines. They'll patch the current things. If you're running commercial software, let it self-update. That will generally keep the patches. If you keep your systems patched, you're protected, because what happens is when the vendors release the patches, the hackers go through what did they just fix, and because they figure out what they fixed, they can figure out what the hole is, and now they think most people aren't going to patch, so I can try to attack with what was just patched, because most people aren't up to date.
Right. So let's go to one more question that's coming straight from you, is what do you suggest using when the common virus programs aren't finding a virus and it seems like it might be malware attacking you or hijacking your computer?
Well, that's a tough one. One of the problems with antivirus is that most antivirus is built around, I know this is bad, I'm looking for it. There's a concept that's called a 0 day, which means this is the first day, this is day 0 when this has been exposed to people, so none of the antiviruses are ready for it. There's some thing, that's sort of the holy grail right now. The best thing to support that is, if you can do, and it's more difficult on home machines if you're a novice user, but they have what's known as application whitelisting, meaning you say, these are the applications I know about, these are the only applications I'm going to let run. So if you end up getting spam that has an attachment that tries to run a program, that program, your computer won't run that program. That's a little difficult in the home arena. In businesses, there's management software to help with that. But really, that's kind of the toughest thing. Is another idea is to have a couple of different antivirus programs. If you think you got infected with something, maybe bring another one in and look at it. So that's really the tough thing with personal computers.
Mm-hmm. So one more question. Let's do one because it came up with the phishing piece.
Yes.
If we can't trust who sent in, what if it's a friend or your grandmother from, and you haven't talked to them a long time and you're seeing it come from them? How do you know it's them or not? And would you be scared of missing a message? And, what do you suggest?
Well, in general, looking at an email is not tremendously dangerous. There are some things that if it gets in, you're already behind. Mm-hmm. But reading an email, the biggest issues are when you click attachments, or if you set your browser to say view images automatically when you're reading your mail. Things can be attached to those. But also, what's the subject? Okay, here's my vacation pics from grandma. Well, grandma's next door and she's not on vacation. Probably don't open that. So you can get some context around the email. If you have random conversations with random friends, this will be a little more difficult, but generally there's a theme. Are they really on vacation? Is this consistent with our other conversations? So there's things that can help you look at the content, not just, hey, it came from grandma, but does grandma own a BMW? Right. Some of those context can help you weed out if this might be real or not.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, and keep those questions coming in. We'll get down to number 6 to 10.
Yes. Okay, here, so picking back up here. Number 6, how to verify a link in a message or a web page. This is critical because in the web world, you've seen this routinely where there's a link that says click here for information. Well, it's clearly not going to a website called click here. So what's displayed is not necessarily where you're going. So what you do is you hover over a link but don't click it. What this means is you move your mouse so that the pointer is above the link, and most browsers will actually show you the web page they're about to go to. So if you hover over a link and it says badguys.ru/something, that's not Bank of America. So look at the link. Does it look like? By the way, RU is the Russian domain name, the main ending. So hover over it, but don't click it. Most browsers will show you the URL that will be accessed via the link. If the link doesn't look right, don't click it. So if you think you're going to Bank of America and it's not clearly a Bank of America, then don't click on it. Number 7 here. Surprising here, don't use a debit card for online transactions. When I've presented this before, this has got the most, huh? What do you mean? And let me explain that. Debit cards do not carry the $50 fraud limit that credit cards do. Some banks will honor that, but by law, debit cards don't carry the credit card protection, the fraud protection. Most debit cards are linked directly to a checking or savings account. The entire balance of that linked account is at risk if a debit card is compromised. Okay, well, how do I do online transactions then? Well, another thing, you can consider to use prepaid cards for kids or travel. Don't give your kids a credit card or a debit card. Give them a prepaid card that's got $100 on it. When they spend $50, fill it back up. Your risk is only the amount that's on the card. That's all that the risk is for you. And many have actually replacement options. So if they actually lose that card, you can call and say, this card was lost. They can say, well, here's the balance we show. We'll void the card and send you a new one. So there's some replacement things you can do there. And then for travel, again, if you get your card stolen, your entire credit card balance, there's protections there, but it's the pain. They freeze your account. You're in Hawaii. You have no cash. How do you pay for anything when all your credit cards are frozen? So if you're using a replaceable card, it may help. It may help when that headache comes up. Your credit's not at risk if a prepaid card is lost or stolen, because you don't owe anybody any money. The card owes you, in fact. So there's no debt derogatory. If you lose the card and don't pay on it, it doesn't matter. So number 9, geo-coded pictures. This is a new phenomenon with the smartphones that are coming out. is that, well, geocoded pictures embed in the picture the GPS coordinates of the location where you took the picture. It's part of the metadata in the picture itself. Most phones and digital cameras today automatically geocode the pictures they take. There's a story here where a Marine took a picture of the building he was guarding and sent it to his girlfriend, and that she didn't know where he was, and no one knew where they were, but that picture was geocoded, and now they knew there was a Marine unit in this location. So you don't even realize this is going on. So the good side of geocoded is it can actually also be used to prove where you were when you intended to be there. So you can say, look, this is a picture at the beach. Here's the time it was taken. Here's where I was. So yes, I was here. So it can prove where you were at times as well. So number 10. And in today's social media society, this might be a little shocking to you and a little difficult, but it's highly protective. Be careful of public social media posting. We're at the airport heading to Hawaii. You just told everybody that sees the post that you're not home. This is a huge threat. If you talk to law enforcement, a lot of home burglaries are the result of we're here checking in places and they know you're not home. Okay, you didn't really announce your trip, but you posted pictures of, here's our vacation. Well, they're geocoded pictures and they just told you you're on the beach in Hawaii. You're not at home. One suggestion is just wait till you're home to post your vacation pictures. So there's no indication that you're not home. Actually, this is an interesting one. Students have been suspended and not allowed to walk at graduation because they posted beach pictures on senior ditch day. So look, you just told us that at noon on Thursday you were at the beach, not at school, you can't walk. So there's things have happened. Another one that's come up is people have been charged with workers' comp fraud when social media posting showed that they were doing things that they weren't supposed to do or couldn't do. And I believe slightly different issue is if you get, and you can't really control this, is there's circumstances where you might actually be tagged in someone else's geocoded picture. You can't really do anything about this, but just be careful. And I believe that is the end of the 10 points.
Well, these are great 10 points, Rick. So one of the things that, came up, you talked about this geocode, which is kind of a little startling to some people. We're getting, big brothery, that people are watching where you are. But you used a term called metadata, and that was the question. What is metadata?
Metadata is in a photo, metadata is the information about the picture. It may say the type of camera that was used. It has the location it was taken, when it was taken. To get really wonky photography, it may show the f-stops and the settings that were used to take the picture. So the metadata is about the picture. It's where it was taken, how it was taken, other details about it. So that's
and anybody can see that.
It's not obvious, but there are photo viewing programs that will then expose the metadata.
Got it. So another question that we had here is, does updating the software on my devices help with security?
It does. For the most part, updates are in place. So it's hard to know whether it's functionality updates or security updates, but if you're always up to date, unless a vendor puts out a bad update on purpose, you're going to be more secure. So yes, that's a way to stay safe on your devices.
Okay. So another question we have here is back to this geocoding, is can you turn off the geocoding for these photos?
Most systems can do that. You're going to have to look at your specific device and see if there's a way. It may be location services. There may be different devices to call it different things. But if you have an iPhone, you could look up on Google how to turn off geocoding on iPhone pictures. So most devices that do geocoding can disable it.
Okay. So if there was, when we're looking at your list of 10, which are all excellent, if there was one thing you want our viewers to see, if there's one thing that you can just stop doing or do when you you know, when you end Wellness Live today, what would that be?
I think there's several that are good here. I think the debit card one is critical if you didn't realize that. I really think it's the first one is realize not everybody's a good guy. If you come into the internet with that skepticism and that am I sure attitude, you'll protect yourself from a lot of things. Most of the things on the internet rely on false trust and pretending to be something they're not. So I think that if you approach it with a skeptical nature, that'll protect you a long way.
Okay, so basically think about it before you do it. So now let's go on the other end. So we're going to be skeptical, but we also don't want people to be scared to use the internet. So where's that balance?
Well, it's use known sites. Believe it or not, a pretty good place to search is Google. As long as you get to actual Google, but you have to be careful. You put an extra O in Google, you may get a site that looks like Google but isn't. Or another, so be careful what you're typing in, be careful what you're doing. Use reputable search engines. They tend to give you accurate results, but also be careful of what you're typing. From the early days of the internet, one of the classic issues was there were two websites. Whitehouse.gov was the White House in Washington D.C. Whitehouse.com was a porn site. So that simple typo, and most browsers at the time, if you didn't put anything on it, would automatically append .gov. So if you just typed White House in your browser bar, it took you to a different site. So just be conscious of what you're doing. Take link, again, back to links. Maybe don't click the link if they tell you this is really neat. Maybe go to YouTube and search it yourself using the labels instead of trusting the links if you're not sure.
Okay. Another question here is, my brother's friend says that I shouldn't be using the internet at Starbucks. Why would that be?
Depends what you're doing. If you're doing your banking at Starbucks, probably not a good idea. Public internet, public Wi-Fi is open. It's like this conversation. Anybody in the room can hear this conversation, okay? But if we go in, if we're at our homes and we get on the phone and talk to each other, that becomes a private conversation. So in Starbucks, basically that's open Wi-Fi, which means anybody can get on, which means anybody can potentially listen to view what you're doing, listen to your internet traffic, and pick up, if you're logging into a banking site, they can pick up your passwords as you're logging in. So doing anything using a password, using like that, probably not a good idea. If you just want to go to YouTube and watch videos or do web searches, that's fine. But doing anything that needs to be protected, probably any place that has free public Wi-Fi, you can't trust it to be secure.
So that's everywhere from Starbucks to the airport?
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Yes, so depending what you're doing, just think, do I want people to have all the information I'm typing into my computer right now?
Okay. Another question that we have here is regarding, is there a way to ensure safety when using public Wi-Fi? So that's a follow-up question to the original. About
the only way you can kind of guarantee safety is if you are using what's known as a VPN, or a virtual private network. If you connect, what that does when you establish that is it builds a secure connection from your computer over the public Wi-Fi, public internet, to the system you're connecting to. An example here, we have VPN access here at work. I'm confident using that because when we connect, it establishes a private connection first. It uses encryption or SSL to encrypt the traffic, and once we're connected, it's doubly encrypted now. So that's a safe method to use public Wi-Fi. A lot of websites now are using, by default, like Gmail now, default it's in a secure mode and encrypted mode, but there still are chances to just be conscious of public Wi-Fi. Is it secure? Is it encrypted? Is it safe?
Right. Wonderful. So one more question that we have here. Oh, and it's a follow-up to your VPN comment. Would a VPN program help when browsing away? And so the answer would be yes to that, or no.
No, because the VPN is really a point-to-point connection. And if you're browsing the web, you're connecting to any number of websites, any number of locations. Well, you can't connect the VPN to each of those websites as you go. So a VPN is really a way to connect back to a home network or back to a work network and then securely interact with those systems. So it doesn't really protect you on the internet in general because you're not going to generally browse through it.
Okay, great. Well, we want to thank Rick for being here. It has been a wonderful conversation and very educational. I think we could all learn from it. I also want to remind you that June 23rd will be our next Wellness Live, and Corey Geen will talk to us about eating vegetables. We're going into the summer months, and it's now the time to maybe get out some vegetables and start shopping for vegetables and also enjoying the vegetables as a family. So my name is Dr. Olivia Moses. Look forward to and see you next time.